In this video, we'll be focusing on techniques called sighting and measuring. Sighting and measuring are drawing techniques that enable you to achieve accurate angles and proportions when drawing objects from direct observation. To begin, set up your drawing board on a chair and place it so that it sits as vertical as possible. In this video, we are focusing on the process of sighting and measuring, not a fully realized drawing, so you can use newsprint or your white drawing paper. You'll also need a full-length piece of your willow or vine charcoal. Your still life will be one large box placed below your line of vision so that you can see the top of the box and also two sides of it. Okay, let's practice sighting an angle of a box. Step 1 is to set up proper body positioning. Body positioning is important to ensure you maintain a fixed point of view. The slightest shift of the head will change how you see your still life. Situate yourself at arm's length with your dominant hand facing towards the still life. Keep your feet planted and shoulders parallel to your drawing board. You'll only move your arms and head during the drawing process, so be sure to find a comfortable position. Now let's practice the arm motion. Holding your charcoal, be sure that your elbow is locked. Swing your arm towards the still life and back to your paper a couple of times. If your hand hits the board, scoot your chair back a bit and try again. Now swing your arm back towards the still life and position your charcoal vertically, pointing towards the ceiling. Practice rotating your wrist side to side so the charcoal moves like the hand of a clock. Be sure you don't point the charcoal towards the still life. If you do, point it back up and begin again. Now let's practice sighting an angle of a box. Swing your arm back out towards the still life and choose one side of the box to sight. Vertical lines always stay vertical, so choose any of the horizontal lines that help create the top or bottom of the box. Position your charcoal towards the ceiling. Close one eye and rotate your wrist and try to line your charcoal up with one side of the box. Be sure to keep your elbow locked and double check to be sure you are not pointing towards the box with the charcoal. When done correctly, it should appear as if your charcoal is lying right on the side of that box. Now, open both eyes, look at your charcoal, and carefully swing your arm back towards your paper. Be sure that your elbow stays locked and you don't move your wrist and lose the angle. Once back at your paper, you can see what that angle looks like, and then you draw it in. Draw it longer than you think you need to. This is what we call an extended line. Now let's take this motion and apply it to drawing the complete box. Get in position, seated arm's length from the drawing board. First draw in the corner of the box, which will be your first vertical line. This is what we call an anchor line. We'll refer back to this line later in the video. Then move on to sighting each angle of the box. Remember to draw each line longer than you think you need to create those extended lines. Don't worry about erasing right now. Just redraw a line when needed. Once you have the first vertical and 4 angles drawn, you'll be ready to draw on the 2 vertical sides of your box. But how do you know how far out to draw them? To measure the vertical line's location, we'll use a technique called point to point. This technique sights the angle between 2 different points in the still life to ensure correct placement and that all angles have been accurately sighted. We'll use point to point here to sight the angle from one box corner to another, as you see in this image. Sight the angle, swing your arm back to the paper, and then draw in that angle. This will show you where that vertical line intersects with an angle that you've already drawn. Then go ahead and put in the vertical line at this point of intersection. Then repeat it on the other side. You can use point to point with any 2 points in a still life to ensure they are correctly placed in relation to one another. Now go ahead and draw those last 2 angles to give you the top of the box. After you've completed drawing each side, go back and adjust any angles as needed. Once you're confident that all angles are correct, go back and darken each side of the box with one confident line. Don't erase your extended lines. Leave these for your instructor to see the trace of your drawing process. Let's look at one additional method for checking your angles for accuracy. Look at each set of horizontal lines that are parallel on the actual box. As these lines go back in space, they should always be getting closer together. This is because they are approaching what's called a vanishing point on the horizon. If your lines are getting further apart as they move back in space, you know that something has gone wrong and you need to reset your angles. Now let's take a look at measuring. Measuring is used to compare the length of one line to another. You can also use it to compare the length and width of any object in a still life. Let's start by taking a look at this drawing of a box. We'll use measuring to make sure each length is in proportion. First, we need to measure the length of the anchor line, that first vertical line that you draw, which is often the front corner of the box. Looking back at your still life, hold your charcoal vertically. Line the top of the charcoal with the top of that vertical line. Then take your thumb and slide it down the charcoal until it reaches the bottom of that line. Hold this measurement, don't let go. Now compare this length to the length of another line. Holding that initial measurement, compare it to the second line and see how many times it fits within it. I just measured it to be about 2 times longer than the anchor line, meaning that my first line fit inside this second one about 2 times. Now move back to your drawing and using your fingers, measure your drawn anchor line, then compare it to that second line. Do almost 2 anchor lines fit inside it? If it's too short or long, make adjustments to the drawing as needed. Always use measuring, sighting, and point to point to keep checking and rechecking your drawing for accurate angles, placement, and proportions. Once you've completed drawing your box, or perhaps a more complicated composition of multiple boxes like you see here, it's time to assess your drawing and determine where you have room for further improvement. Ask yourself the following. Does the drawing demonstrate your ability to accurately sight angles? Look and see if your boxes look like they are comfortably sitting on a surface, or do they appear as if they're tilting or floating? Try taking 2 rulers and line them up on each side of those parallel lines. Do they get closer together as they move back in space? Does your drawing include extended lines from the drawing process? And did you accurately measure each line so that the box looks like the correct size and shape of that actual box you were drawing? Finally, if you are assessing a fully realized drawing, does it have a successful composition, utilizing the whole page with a clear focal point and visual flow? Remember, each drawing has its strengths and weaknesses. Sighting and measuring takes time to master, so keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next video.